Here we just got some fresh new information about the new Dory in Broggy, who is of course going to synergize so well with the Gear 5 Luffy. So to no one's surprise, this unit also has damage limit break as a potential ability. This time he's going to be a type based damage limit break unit. Of course, we have a lot of other characters alongside him, being Kashi and Oimo. This is a regular Kizuna and support sugo-fest. This is not part 2 of the celebration. That's going to be the end of month batch, or so everyone thinks. I think that's the most reasonable, which will probably come alongside a blitz next month, or we could see a blitz with part 3 in October. So we don't know what's going to happen exactly yet. Of course, we're probably going to see the 5 elders as part 2 or part 3, because it seems like they're going to go into action right now from the last One Piece episode. So hopefully we see a lot of great Saint Saturn support. And this legend, Dory and Broggy, this character I think is excellent. There is a bit of a tag issue yet again, but I think overall this character has some really great use and has very powerful abilities that synergizes also not just well with Luffy, but also with the Frankie from the end of month batch. So one thing that the Dory and Broggy is going to do, you can actually use their special multiple times, up to 3 times in the quest. And each time you pop him, he reduces cooldown by 3 turns for powerhouse units. And as we know with Frankie, he's a very similar unit to Cross Guild in that he uses special 3 times. After using his special once, he gets 13 turns of cooldown. But his cooldown itself is 16 turns. So there's still another 3 turns of cooldown between activations that you have to account for. But luckily, Dory and Broggy has you sorted. He will give you that 3 turns of cooldown. And since you can use his special multiple times in the quest, you can fully use Frankie to his utmost abilities. So there's a lot of different potentials when it comes to this new Dory and Broggy, but first let's explain what he's actually going to do. First of the batch, I do think part 2 is much better. Yes, we have trash units like Sai and Leo, as well as the Whitebeard and arguably also the Snake. But you also have to consider that we also have this Bonnie supporter air recruit, who is one of the best in the game. It attaches to Zoro, Luffy, Law, Kid, Puma, Stella, as well as a bunch of other characters, and it's just going to give you 3 turns of attack down reduction and a universal color affinity of 1.75x when you get inflicted with attack down. And it is overrideable color affinity as well, so it's not going to hold you back in those high damage situations. So this is a great support effect. If you don't have her, you should be pulling on this part. Of course, Khalifa, I mean, I guess you might want to go for her. Personally, I also miss Shiryu. Either way, I think you guys should be doing at least the discounts on part 1 and 2 with your Rainbow Tavern medals, of course. Beyond that, don't touch the rest of the banner. I don't think, unless you're like someone who is gonna want to get to the highest damage possible in Superboss, because of course we have damage limit break with Dory and Broggy. Otherwise, I don't think he's worth it right now, especially because the banner is not anything special. It's probably going to be a 1.5x legend rate. Part 1, the actual rare recruits aren't as good. The Jabra and the Vasco shot is not nearly as good as the Bonnie, but the legends are much better. So I mean, do both discounts, you could get something decent. But enough chit chat, let's talk about the rare recruits first of all, because I think they are terrible. Well, Oimo in particular. Look at this guy's special. If you have less than 30% HP, reduces bind by 6 and attack down by 3. If you don't have, if you're above 30% HP or at 30% HP, you get only 3 turns of bind reduction. And then if you have 3 or more giant characters, which is, there's only 7 giant tagged characters in the game, by the way, and most of them are not really used, he's going to give you a 2.25x or boost for Powerhouse and Striker for 1 turn. If you don't have that condition, it's only 1.75x. So in most cases, all the special is doing is giving you 3 turns of bind reduction and a 1.75x or boost for 1 turn. This is, I've seen 2015 units that have more abilities than that, with greater multipliers and reductions. Yeah, I don't know what they were doing with this guy's special. Great support ability, however, attaching to all Usop's, Choppers, Shanks, Dory, and Broggy. And when you get inflicted with bind, 20% HP cut to the crew, but you get a 2-turn bind reduction for all of your units, of course, and then also allows you to perform super tandem with int and recovery orbs, and also is going to reduce the supported unit's super swap gauge by 2 swaps. Really good effect. Of course, the new Nami and Usopp 6+, you can use this support ability to reduce their super swap gauge. So they're already only 4 swaps to get their super swap, but with the support it goes down to 2, which is really good. And of course 2 turns of bind reduction whenever for these characters is so powerful. And for a lot of units, a lot of different characters require you to have lower HP, so having that 20% HP cut and also to get around stun debuff, this is really powerful support ability. But besides that, his special is garbage. His sailors are nothing to write home about. A blowaway immunity, we expect that for all the giant characters, they all have that, of course. Oimo is rubbish. Kashi, however, is also not the best, but he's way better than Oimo. Look at this essay of a special. But I'm gonna boil down to its most basic. You need giant characters. You need a damage reduction based attack boost for this guy to actually be good. So, in most scenarios, all the special is going to be doing is give you 6 turns of paralysis reduction and reduce enemies' defense up by 6 turns, which is really powerful, but that's not enough for a special in 2025. If you have 3 or more giant characters, so 2 units besides himself, you get a 1.2 chain boost for 3 turns and a 0.4 increase in your color affinity buffs. But that's only if you reach that requirement, which is very difficult. So most case scenarios, you're not getting this. Additionally, don't get intimidated by this. If you're below 30% HP, another 3 turns of threshold reduction, which is really nice, but that should be 6 turns, let's be real, or at least 5 turns, because that is quite the requirement and he's not doing much else. There's a lot of text here, but it's quite bombastic. There's not much to it. You need a attack boost, color affinity, chain multiplicative buff, and a damage reduction based attack boost. Multiplicative buff and damage reduction based attack boost are both extremely rare buffs. If you have all those, it's going to give you a 0.4 increase in your attack boost and your chain multiplicative buff. I'll admit, 0.4 increase in a chain multiplicative buff is insane. Like, that's a huge increase in your chain and resultantly your damage. But it is a very difficult condition. To have all those buffs at the same time is not very common. Now, of course, the new Dory and Broggy are going to provide both of those. So it's going to be very easy to fulfill this. In which case, the team is going to give, or his special is going to give you a attack boost and chain multiplicative buff of 0.4, or buff to those existing buffs. He's also going to extend existing color affinities. And then also, if you are running him under Dory and Broggy double captains, you will meet this requirement of 3 or more giant characters. And you'll also get a chain boost and a buff for your color affinity. So once you meet the requirements, this unit is actually really powerful. But most case scenarios, it's only going to be a 6 turns of paralysis reduction and 6 turns of enemy defense up reduction, which is not that powerful. But at its strongest, it's those, and then also the threshold reduction of 3 turns, and then a buff of 0.4 for your attack boost, color affinity, chain multiplicative buff, and then additionally a 1.2 chain boost for 3 turns, which is really powerful. All that is really strong, but in most case scenarios, I don't see Kashi seeing play. Once again, he also has a very good support ability attaching to the giants. This attaches to units like Karasu Mole, the treasure map legend, the Mole Colosseum. These characters, when you use their special, will provide you a 1.75x powerhouse color affinity, which is really powerful. We love to see these color affinity support abilities that are above 1.5x. Even 1.5x is quite rare, Seeing 1.75x is really nice for all powerhouse units. So that's about it for the rare recruits, but let's talk about what the Dory and Broggy themselves is going to do, the main legend here. So Dory and Broggy, their captain ability. So this is a super class unit, or powerhouse of course. This is a mono powerhouse legend. The Dory and Broggy, captains of the giant pirate crew. 2 turns of cooldown reduction for only powerhouse characters. He's going to boost powerhouse characters' attack by 5.25x, HP by 1.5x, so very tanky. Makes their quick, psi, int, recovery, and tandem orbs counted as matching. So that's 5 of the 7 natural orbs counted as beneficial. You'll be seeing a lot of beneficial orbs with this character. And then deals 300 times the attack in quick damage, so it's type damage, to all enemies at the end of the turn. So this implies we can get around resilience, which is very powerful. So that's kind of the utility in this captain. Additionally, if you have 3 or more giant, straw hat pirates, or 4 emperors on the crew, then you get a further 1.1x increase in your attack boost for powerhouse characters. So that's essentially bringing them up to a 5.8x, which is still not too bad. And that's a very easy condition. You only need 2 characters besides themselves. If you're running double Dory and Broggy, you only need 1 other character. And straw hat pirates are very common. For emperors, we have a lot of good of those. Of course, there's a lot of good Shankses. And of course, Luffy. The new Luffys are going to be 4 emperors as well. But he's also going to be straw hat pirates, so that doesn't really matter. And then if you have 3 or more, okay, this is very complicated at first, but it's very powerful. So for this condition, for this ability to activate his special automatically multiple times per quest, at the very least, you need to have 3 or more giant tagged characters on the crew. So it's very difficult. Double Dory and Broggy, and then you still need another giant character, which there are some decent ones. I can actually show you which ones there are. So these are the characters, of course. Most of them, or actually like 4 of them, are both Dory and Broggy units themselves. So of course you can't run them as a sub under the new Dory and Broggy. So you essentially have access to 5 characters. 2 of them are PvP rare recruits with no good special abilities. So all you have access to is San Juan Wolf, the arena unit, who is pretty trash. He only reduces chain coefficient, bad chain locks, gives you a heal, and then a very weak color affinity. And a very slight orb boost after 2 turns with the clock buff. So this unit's trash. The Karasu and Morley is the only option. We do have Colosseum Morley, but he's really not good nowadays. He used to be somewhat decent. But this guy's really your only option. And he's not even powerhouse, so he's not going to synergize well. So we really need more giant characters. Of course, the new Kaimo, what's his name? Oimo and Kashi is going to go great, but most people will not have them. So Karasu Mole is your only option. It's a bit shit. So yeah, I really wish Big Mom was giant tagged. I mean, she isn't explicitly said to be a giant character, but she kind of is a giant, but I mean, not really. So yeah, it would have been really nice for all Big Moms to be giants. But yeah, we only have Karasu and Morley essentially, so very difficult requirement. But in turn, this is a very powerful and easy ability to activate once you meet this condition. So once you have a chain multiplicative buff, or this is the easy part, you get a status effect on your crew. So this is not bind, this is not despair, nothing tied to a specific position fulfills this requirement. If you get something like poison, I'm pretty sure even an attack boost counts, just any status effect that applies to your crew, then you will activate Dory and Broggy's special automatically. Additionally, if you apply a status effect to an enemy, so if you are, say, delaying the enemy to proc your conditional attack boost, you're setting the enemy's defense to 0, you're poisoning the enemy, setting target status to the enemy. It doesn't have to be all the enemies, even just one enemy. It will also activate this effect. So it's very easy essentially doing anything will activate this, besides getting specific position related debuffs. So if you get bind, you get despair, special bind, silence, paralysis, anything like that will not activate this effect. But if you inflict any buffs to the enemy, I mean any I can't speak, any debuffs to the enemy, then this will just automatically activate Dory and Broggy's special after the preemptive. Now, the exact logistics of what qualifies for this is very ambiguous, because technically the way it's worded, even if the enemy in their preemptive gave themselves a defense up, that is technically a status effect. So they technically should fulfill the requirement and we should be able to activate this automatically. But I'm assuming it's only if you inflict a status effect onto the enemy, or if the enemy inflicts a status effect on you. That is for the entire crew. So poison, but can't be anything specifically related to a slot or position. So nothing like bind despair, as I said multiple times. And this can be activated up to twice. So the usual scenario in which you'd use those two specials is on stage 2 and on stage 3 of, for instance, Treasure Map, or stage 4 and stage 5 of a Pirate King Adventures, or on stage 2 or stage 3 of a Kizuna. So you're going to be getting a lot from this, because look at this guy's special. It maxes out 14 turns of cooldown, which is not bad after expansion. Most legends nowadays are 15 turns after expansion. And what it's going to do is going to cut your crew's HP by 80%, reduce powers and slash your character's cooldowns by 3 turns, and reduces all enemy barriers by 3 turns. One of the most turns in terms of barrier reduction from a special. Only other characters that do that is Robin and Koala, and Legend Treasure Map Stussy, who is a 5-turn barrier reduction unit. This is really powerful. Then we'll reduce damage taken by 90%, so this is both for enemy normal attacks and death hits. And then if you have 4 more giants, straw hats, or 4 emperors on the crew, which is very easy, 3 units besides themselves, then it's going to give you a damage reduction based attack boost for powerhouse characters. So this is a very strong damage reduction based attack boost. It scales perfectly. 0.1 increase in your damage reduction based attack boost for every 10% of damage reduction you have. If you have a damage nullification effect, this will be a 2x. If you don't meet that requirement, the tag requirement, it's halved in terms of how strong it is. So if you have a damage nullification, it'll only give you 1.5x damage instead of 2x. So it's still pretty decent. I'm glad that they still added that instead of just completely having that not activatable. That's not really a word, but who cares? And then if your special launch status is at 1, activates HP guard of 90% for 1 turn. Now, if you are a newer player, you may not know what HP guard is. It's essentially just a buff that protects you from damage debuffs that are inflicted onto your crew. So if you have instant burn and every perfect inflicts you with 10,000 damage, this will reduce it down to 1,000 damage. Similarly, for the pain debuff, which is the debuff that inflicts you with damage after every action you do, so switch effects, super classes, specials, anything like that, that pain debuff will also be reduced in terms of the damage it deals to you. I'm not sure about healing to damage debuffs. There's a debuff that states that when you heal HP, you instead take that amount of damage. I'm pretty sure it also protects you from that, but this is just a very helpful effect, especially since Dory and Broggy reduces your HP by 80%. It means that you are very vulnerable to those otherwise seemingly harmless debuffs that can very well kill you when you're at such a low HP. So it's very important that you do get this guard effect, but you also get it from a super swap, so you don't really need to have your special launch status at 1 to survive, but it does help. And then he's going to change his own orb and adjacent characters into matching orbs through block. So of course you want to run him in the middle row so that you get 4 matching orbs instead of 2. And then he's also going to give you a chain multiplicative buff of 1.5x for a turn. If your captain is a powerhouse or slasher class, then he's going to become Dory and Broggy for 1 turn. And apply enemy increased damage taken of 1.75x through all immunities. This is very powerful. Now, what's very strange and unique is that most dual units, after using their special, they go into their dual form guaranteed for 3 turns. He does it conditionally and for 1 turn only. Now, I can see why they wanted to do this. It's because when you use his special, you won't have access to his swap effect, which you may want to use again on the final stage. Remember, you are going to be using this guy's special over multiple stages. On the second last stage, if this guy's special automatically activates and becomes the dual form, it means that if he lasted for 3 turns in his dual form, you wouldn't be able to use his super swap effect on the final stage, which gives you matching orbs, an HP guard, and a chain multiplicative buff. So it's very good that this is actually only lasting for 1 turn. And then it also gives you a increased damage taken through full immunities, which is very rare for it to go through that. So overall, this is a very powerful special. And the fact that you can use it multiple times, up to 3 times in most quests, is really powerful. I mean, in my opinion, there's 4 enemy buffs that are the most annoying to get around. Defense up, resilience, damage nullification, and barriers. He gets around 3 of those, because his superclass also reduces damage nullification by 2 turns. He reduces barriers by 3 turns. His captain ability does end of turn damage to get around resilience. He's a -2 cooldown captain, so he's really viable in speed farming aspects. He provides 2 of the most rare buffs in the game: a damage reduction based attack boost, a chain multiplicative buff, and he also inflicts the enemy with increased damage taken through full immunities. He's also viable even if you don't meet the tag requirement, and he provides surviving debuffs like HP guard and damage reduction. Overall, I think Dory and Broggy is an excellent character, and also don't forget the orb manipulation through block orbs. When it comes to the superclass, it is a bit of a weird one. It's not the most powerful superclass, but it definitely has its use cases. And its activation requirement is very easy. All you need is 2 units that are full part of the Straw Hat crew, Shanks, or Vivi. You can ignore Karu, Oimo, and Kashi. I mean, if you get the new characters, they work as well, but the most relevant ones are Shanks and the Straw Hat crew. So you only need 2 of those characters, and then it's going to set his special launch status to 1. So one thing you need to note is that if you don't have his superclass, the special launch status is not based on how many times you've used the special. That's not how special launch status works. The special has to set it to 1. Because if we take a look here at Frost Guild, they explicitly state after the first activation of the special, sets the launch status to 1. Dory and Broggy does not state that in their special. As you can see here, 0. And then after that, it states at the end here, and changes next launched effect to 1. So, and Frankie also has that, the end of month banner Frankie. The one that I said synergizes so well with him. Both of those characters state that in their special, states the special launch status to 1 after the first activation. Dory and Broggy is not like that. So you have to be very careful. Just keep that in mind. Keep an eye on that. That you do need to use the superclass to get access to the second half of the special, which gives you an HP guard, matching orbs, a chain multiplicative buff, and luckily this last part here is separate from that requirement. All you need is a powers or slasher class captain. You still get the dual form, you still get the increased damage taken through the full immunity. What you lose out on is the multiplicative buff, the matching orbs, and the HP guard. So you don't need to have that special launch status at 1 for this unit to be viable, and this character requires them to be the captain for the superclass to be activated. So unfortunately, if you are a sub, using them as a sub, you won't get access to this part of the special. But as I said before, you do get an HP guard from the super swap, which we'll talk about in a bit. 9 swaps is ridiculous though. But anyways, the super class is for powers, of course. It's going to set the character's special launch status to 1. Reduce enemy damage now by 2 turns, really good. Changes the bottom row orbs into recovery, which gets around hunger stacks. Very nice. I wish we went through blocks at least. The block orbs. And then gives you a 2.25x powerhouse attack boost for 3 turns, which is a very weak attack boost, especially in 2025. But it is 3 turns, and the condition is very easy. You have to consider all those things. So overall, he's getting around 2 very annoying debuffs and enemy buffs, damage null, hunger stacks, and giving you a multiple stage attack boost. And also making his special much stronger. So I still think it's a very strong superclass. I really just wish it was activatable as a crewmate. Then it would be much better. But that's about it. He also has the damage limit break for type, as I said at the start of the video. For quick, of course. So yeah, we're going to be seeing a lot more of these characters. Of course, they're going to stack. In terms of his super swap and his regular swap, it is a chain multiplicative unit in terms of their swap, which is very similar to Vivi and Rebecca V2. But this guy is a bit better. He provides his own orb and adjacent orbs into matching through block, an HP guard of 90%, which, as I explained before, is very powerful, and then also a 1.5x chain multiplicative buff. Very difficult requirements, 9 swaps, but I think the effect somewhat warranted. I think 7 swaps would have been more appropriate. This is a very high requirement. In most cases, you're not going to get it. And otherwise, he's only going to give himself a matching orb through block, and he's just going to give a 1.2x chain multiplicative buff. So no HP guard, not even like a 20% HP guard. The chain multiplicative is very weak, and the orb manipulation is whatever. So in terms of the super swap, I think the actual effect is good enough, but there's just too many swaps you need to get him charged. Of course, he has sailor abilities to get around special rewind and the blow away. But yeah, giving so much cooldown with his special 3 turns, and then having that 3 times per quest is gonna help with speed farming so much. I mean, in treasure map, you can use this guy as a captain for getting around resilience, giving you cooldown, having a bunch of HP, and then also providing the cooldown. But you also have to remember, on the final stage, he will automatically activate his special, which will give a bunch of effects almost instantly. I just really hope his special activates really fast. It'll make him much more viable in treasure map. But that's about it for Dory and Broggy. I mean, let's just take a look at their Rumble stuff, because I was not impressed by this. Of course, GP is nothing special. It's a trash fodder one. Yeah, no, this guy is not good in Rumble. So at level 10, he's going to be a 35 CT unit, very high. Target slash and powers class teammates for attack up level 5 for 20 seconds, okay. And then if you have 4 more Straw-Eyed Pirates, Red-Eyed Pirates, or Giant tag units on the team, targets team for 100% chance to remove attack down, and targets all enemies for attack of 5 times his own attack stat. And then if you have 40 seconds or less on the time, another 3x damage to those enemies. Not through defense, which is, as we saw with the Luffy, is a big problem. So now we have another unit for the quick team. Not really for the quick team, he's more of a slasher powers team unit. But either way, this unit does not go through defense, which is a big problem. The utility is kind of just whatever. It's not like, it's not carrying him. And for 35 CT and the condition, nah, I just don't see it, man. This unit's trash. Slasher powers, class teammates, attack up level 6, HP up 6, speed up level 6. And then when you have 40 seconds, if you have more than 40 seconds, so for the first 0.6 of the fight, so the first 60 seconds, stealth defense up 6, and stealth special CT speed up of 5. So his special is going to activate quite fast, but it's just not good enough. I don't see this character being used in Rumble. I'm sorry, man. Does he have the super special? Nope. Trash unit. That's about it. Thank you guys for watching. I think the Oimo is horrible, worse than most 2016 units. The Kashi is not really that great, but in the right scenario, he can be amazing. Dory and Broggy, I think, is overall a great legend, with the main problems being the fact that the superclass can't be used as a sailor, The switch effect is great, but it has way too many swaps to get charged. And I think the cooldown in his captain ability should have been for all units. But overall, I think this character is great. Of course, his rumble stuff is absolute garbage as well. That's about it. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace, and I'm out.